And welcome back to the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. We're continuing our conversation with the voiceover artist and radio personality Jeff Davis. And last time we were talking about musicians, and Jeff has more insights about musicians and how they're not really how most of us perceive them.
This is one thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that many of these people are really musicians, average people who got caught up in incredibly above average situations, and they many of them have normal lives, or at least try to. I think the ones that there's a certain aspect of the body chemistry. You get dopamine, when you're satisfied, when you have all of this stuff going up in you. And I've hosted big concerts. I hosted a Journey. I hosted Cheap Trick. I sang on stage with R.E.L. Speedwagon and Cheap Trick.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, when you're out on the stage, you feel the pressure of the audience hit your chest, and your mind is going a million miles an hour. Making sure that you get everything straight. That you're introducing the group, or you're saying, if they have certain things they want you to say prior to the show. Your brain is just really just incredibly rapid thoughts going through your mind and trying to make sure that you don't screw something up or that you forget something that needs to be said. And you're out there, and then you get done with it, and your mood is so elevated. And I think I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a film director one day, and I told him that I felt that one of the reasons why a lot of artists get into drugs is because after they're off stage, they want to keep that high.
Mm.
He said, I never thought of it that way, but it does make sense that would be one of the causes why people get caught up in their addictions. And I said, well, I don't know that a study's ever been made of it, but I said, it just kind of makes sense to me that that's the case. Now, there are certainly cases like Tom Petty and, of course, Michael Jackson, where there was a medical aspect of it, and Prince as well. Prince,
Mm-hmm.
another case, where they got addicted because of a medical condition. You look at someone like Rush Limbaugh, for instance, same deal.
Mm-hmm.
Caught up in OxyContin because he had terrible pain. And I think that that's something that should be addressed, because we've lost too many people to that kind of thing. And it's not something that's going to go away. It'll keep happening.
Yeah, the thing is that, too often times people, have this pressure, this kind of like, I got to present myself as perfect, have no problems. And, I've talked with people who, are kind of envious about the well-to-do. And I've said to them, look, the well-to-do have just as many problems, probably even more problems than you have.
Yeah.
Because, there's a lot more pressure on them. But they said, well, they look like their lives are, they're putting on this great facade. But the thing is, we only get it's like looking at a painting. But the thing is, we only get to see a small part of that painting. We don't see the whole picture oftentimes.
Right.
True. Because, in having worked, in radio myself, and, I've worked, a lot of Christian music and stuff. The thing that the Christian music I was drawn to was groups like Small Town Poets, Jars of Clay, All Star United, because those songs were real. Sixpence None the Richer, because the songs dealt with real life situations, real struggles. Yeah. Heck, there was even a group called the 77s. Chris Hillman of the Byrds played bass on this particular tune. It was called The Lust, the Flesh, the Eyes, and the Pride of Life. Drain the life right out of me. Just it was like, it was one of the most raw, honest songs I've ever heard in my life. And it didn't get any airplay because it was too honest. But it was a great tune and something that I think should have gotten airplay because it was just raw and real. Yeah.
Well, my brother owns a number of contemporary Christian country stations He owns a station up in Spokane, Washington. He owns one in Missoula, Montana, and a cluster of 3 stations in northeastern Georgia. And
wow,
he's always had a great love for contemporary Christian music, and decided that that was what he wanted to do. And I told him, because he used to be on the air. He still is on the air, but he used to just be air.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the best production people I've ever known. He's amazing. But I told him one day when he was telling me, I want to own a radio station. I said, that's not as easy as you think. I said, it's a lot of work. And I said, I would never do that. And he said, I just really want to do it. I want to control a station and know that it's mine and all this other stuff. And as it turns out, he was blessed with an opportunity where this radio station up in Spokane, Washington, it was a non-com.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 90-some-year-old man who was running it, and he was feeble, and he and his partner, who worked, I think, at KTF. What was the station in Orange County that was Christian?
Oh, KYMS?
Yeah, KYMS. He worked at KYMS with her,
mm-hmm.
and they did an inquiry, and they worked a deal with him where they would give him, a certain amount of profits, of course, taking what they needed for a meager salary. They weren't making much money.
Mm-hmm.
Condition, that, when he passed, that they would be able to get ownership of the station. Well, the man's 90-some years old. He's not going to be around too much longer. So that did happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got lots of donations from people in the community, because at that time they were basically just running taped shows, from various ministries around the country.
Oh, yeah.
And they wanted to take it into something a little different, and they got a lot of support from the community, and then he was able to grow. The Missoula property is his latest, and he's really done very well. Very well. I'm proud of him.
In fact, it was interesting. One of my former coworkers is Brian Perez. He now programs K-Wave 107.9, which is mostly Christian talk and teaching with worship songs whenever there's no sermon programs. And he had your brother, Lee Davis, as program director. And he said that Lee was awesome. And Lee had a great saying. He says, women want music that doesn't make them feel old. I'm paraphrasing this. I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, but they wanted music that sounded good. They didn't just want, cheese or whatever, or settle for second best when it came to programming that station. And it was around for about 21 years as a Christian station, music station that is. And
right.
I talked with Dale Berg a couple weeks ago. He was on that station twice back in the early 80s as well as again the early 90s. And he said they oftentimes would change formats and stuff. So it was kind of like, sometimes it would do really well in the ratings. Other times it didn't do so well in the ratings. I guess that a lot of radio stations are like that, but it just seemed like every time they, went to something that was, not so good cheese-wise, cheesy music, they'd go down the ratings. But when they had good music, they went up in the ratings.
Yeah, he's very sharp, and I think he's very excited about, the future. The radio station in Missoula is not it's not a non-com. They can sell commercials there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what his stations are in Georgia. It's a cluster, I think, of 3 stations. They may have a CP there for one of them. I don't know, but he travels an awful lot. I just talked to him last week, but once in a while he'll make his way down to Poto, Oklahoma, where my mother is. And my mother has dementia, and it's really a tough thing with that. But it happens to a lot of people who reach their 90s like she had.
Yeah, my grandpa had dementia many years ago, and my dad's wife currently has it as well, or the early stages of it. It's just, oh man, it's just awful.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he will be able to do very well and even get more stations, because I know he's planning on doing it when he can.
Now, do all the stations carry the same programming from one feed, or does he program them each individually?
They carry it from the same feed, except they do, I'm not sure how it works, but it's time delayed, so the guy, whoever's on from 6 to 10 a.m. on the West Coast is on 6 to 10 a.m. on the East Coast, or however it works. In other words, they have the same, it works in the same time type thing. I'm not really sure how it works. There was a term for that. Some satellite company had a term for that, and it basically is delayed broadcast.
Like a tape delay type of situation, or
it's all done. It's all done. They record their shows on a computer, and then it puts the ones in a proper time zone, and that's how it works.
Wow.
You know, it's pretty cool. And he came to my studio in August, and he said, "You know, this is really a great little facility you've got here." He said, I could put a translator in here and broadcast to photo." And I said, "Well, there's a closet right there. You can put the transmitter right there." And he said, "Yeah, the transmitter would fit perfectly there."
Wow.
So, you know, we were laughing about that. He won't do that, I don't think, but it certainly was a temptation for him. And I asked him about it recently, and he said, "I haven't checked to see if there's a frequency available." He said, "But if there is, I might look into putting something in that room." This little house in the back of my mother's house is really nice. It was built there, I think, after the house was built. A 200-square-foot house, and it doesn't have facilities in there. It's got electricity and all that stuff, and I put T-Mobile internet in there, which is very fast. And I've got a mixing desk, and I've got my acoustics up, and I've got really everything I need. Two monitors, so that I like to use two monitors when I'm doing shows. I do these shows for Lifestyles Unlimited in San Antonio, and the way I have it set up is that I've got instructions and various files that I have to pull for that show on the left monitor, and on the right channel I've got Adobe Audition, which is where I add commercials and all that stuff. It's pretty quick to take care of it, because basically what I do is I set them up to the proper timing, and then add the commercials that go to a specific market, and then render them out, which is very fast, and then send them off to the people down in San Antonio, where they distribute them to the radio stations.
Wow.
You know, it's a nice little side gig. You know,
definitely.
Rest of it's voice work. Some pretty big stations around the country that I really enjoy working with.
In fact, the other day when we were talking, you were at the voice imaging voice of WSB in Atlanta, as well as WLS Chicago. You know, the big 89 from back in the day. My mom has the Big Ron O'Brien official Beatles Club button from the 1960s somewhere in her house. Or maybe it's in my house. I don't remember. She may have given it to me. But I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, because each market had their own, their own fifth Beatle. L.A. had Dave Hull, the Hullabalooer, and New York City, I think it was either Murray the K on one station and Dandy Dan Daniel on 57 WMCA.
Yeah.
And so...
legendary names, I've always said, and I truly believe this, we owe a great deal of thanks to the people who came before, because they not only created the evolution of what the business has become, but they managed to keep it so that it has grown over a period of time and gave us a career. One of the biggest thrills that I ever had was creating the WLS 75th anniversary special in 1999, and I did a little bit of traveling. I went to Tucson to interview Rex Allen, who became a good friend, and I went down to San Diego to interview Patty Page, And then I went up to Reno to interview Ron Riley. I'm getting mind blank now. But anyway, I traveled to different places and interviewed a lot of these people who are now dead. And if I had not done that, I spent $6,000 of my own money to do this show, and it aired on WLS a few times, and then
is it available on YouTube to listen to, or who has the copy of that?
I don't know that it's available anywhere. I probably should post it online. Maybe I'll do that sometime soon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got audio going all the way back to the beginning days of WLS 1924, and the barn dance and all that stuff. I have a huge library of WLS materials, air checks, all that stuff, and I truly have a great deal of love for radio history. At one point, at one of the hours of the WLS history show, I have the 6-hour show. I have the Hindenburg story, and WLS. Herb Morrison was the guy who went down there and did that. Went over to New Jersey, Lakehurst, New Jersey, when that happened, and he chronicled it. And if it hadn't been for him, there would have been no audio of that happening. And it's a great story. But I actually have a set of discs that were printed in 1937. I guess it was 37 when it was printed. It might have been 38 later.
Wow.
They're 78 RPM. A needle has never touched them, and I have them up in a closet where they're protected, at least for now. But I started to say I went to Reno to interview Art Roberts, and Art was he was part of the WLS group before I was there. But I also interviewed these people from the barn dance in the 1940s, and you learn these stories about these people and all that they contributed to the industry, and it is amazing to me. I recently was inducted into the North Carolina Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
Congratulations!
Thank you. And it was such a thrill. But looking at the incredibly legendary people that have been inducted into the North Carolina Broadcasters Hall of Fame, people like Andy Williams and Reverend Billy Graham and all those people, I kept thinking, man, am I really worthy? And it was very kind of them to nominate me and then ultimately induct me. But there are just so many people in our industry that I felt would be forgotten if I didn't get them on tape. So I did everything I could to get these people on tape and at least get things from people who are no longer with us, get them where it was chronicled in this special, which has aired a number of times on WLS. And I expect that with their 100th anniversary, which is coming up in 2024, they're probably going to want me to add to that show. And, I will, because I've got so many archives. But, we'll have stuff in there from, Rokon and other people who are no longer at the station, who were part of the station's, I guess, evolution into news talk. And, I feel like I've been a very important part of that station over the years, and I have a great deal of love for WLS and its history, as I feel the same for WSB. I've been on WSB for 30 years. How many people have that kind of longevity?
Not many.
And not many is right. And, The people have come and gone at WSB and at WLS, and I'm still there.
That's great. Also, it's great what you're doing, preserving history, as WLS has its 100th anniversary, and hopefully other radio stations follow suit and do something similar to what you're doing. My name is Josh Jacobs. This is the Talking Archive, and next time we'll talk to Jeff about another personality he had just mentioned that kind of caught my attention, a Disney legend. We'll be discussing him next time on the Talking Archive.